Hello! Oh, I have a fun one for you today. Let's see, do you know what this is? This is called yarn. And yarn is a string that sometimes you make into like a sweater, you use it for clothes or maybe for a hat. And it comes in lots of different colors. This one is really sparkly. I don't know if you can see those sparkles. And it has some green yarn also. Well, the book I have today is all about yarn. It's called Extra Yarn. And it's kind of a long book, so I hope it's not too long for you. But I think you're going to like it. It's really one of my favorite books because of the illustrations, the pictures. Extra Yarn by Mark Barnett. It's all about this girl, and it's in the middle of winter, so it's really cold. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from the chimneys, Annabelle found a box with yarn of every color. So this is Annabelle and her dog, and you see her with her little box? Her box is full of yarn. So she went home and she knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for her dog Mars too. Do you see Mars's sweater? But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed. He said, "Ha ha, you two look ridiculous." "Oh, you're just jealous," said Annabelle. "I'm not," said Nate. This is Nate over here. See how neat those pictures are? And Nate has a puppy. But it turned out that he was. Annabelle made them sweaters. And even after she'd made sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself, and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. Oh, she has lots of it. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Shh, quiet," said Mr. Norman, the teacher. "Quiet, everybody," Annabelle. "That sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach everyone when everyone is turning around to look at you." "Oh, then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." He doesn't think she has enough yarn. But it turned out she could, and she did, even for Mr. Norman. Them all. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. Geez, she has a lot. So she knit sweaters for her mom and her dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and for Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and even for little Louis. I like little Louis. She's nice. She made sweaters for everyone except for Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. See him in the snow? That looks cold. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. There's his fancy hat. So she made sweaters for all of the dogs, and all of the cats, and all of the other animals too. Soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even need or wear sweaters. See, she made a sweater for the house, and the birdhouse, and the mailbox. Boy, she's busy. Things began to change in her little town. She knitted the whole town, made sweaters for the whole town. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, the Archduke, who was very fond of clothes, sailed all the way across the street and demanded to see Annabelle. This is the Archduke. I'll give you a hint, he's the bad guy in the book. "Little girl," said Archduke, "I would like to buy the miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for the pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10 million, shouted the Archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. But, can you tell what time it is? Yep. That night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box of yarn. And they took it to the Archduke, who was set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Can you see the boat? So he stole the yarn and he left. And he went back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song, and he sat at his best chair, and then he took out the box, and he lifted the lid, and he looked inside. His mustache quivered, it shivered, and it trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out of the window, and he shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." Ooh, he thinks the little girl that Annabelle tricked him and took all the yarn. So you see the box? It went out the window, it went. But, see it? It landed on an iceberg. And it floated and floated back to who? Yeah, it went back to Annabelle. It turned out she was. The end. She knit a sweater for the entire tree. She got her box back, and it was full of sweater again. It was magic. Wasn't that a good book? Extra Yarn by Mark Barnett. I hope you liked it.